County. Okay, so we are live today. We are going to be looking at a deal. I think I should be live, but for some reason it's not registering, but it looks like I'm live on Instagram. So let me kind of talk through what we're doing today. So today I am going to be releasing these 5 zip codes in our free Facebook group for these particular zip codes that have a higher chance of cash flowing if it's a creative deal or just in general. These were zip codes were recommended to me by Stu Hicks. Stu was a podcast guest on our affordable housing and real estate investing podcast almost about a year ago. He runs a Section 8 placement company in Detroit. And I personally have not used him yet, but I've met him in person, and he is a stand-up guy. He really understands all the different housing authorities that exist in Detroit, and he really has a great heart. So I truly believe in what he's doing, and I believe in the zip codes that are highly desirable based on his recommendations. So I'll be putting up these zip codes. These fair market rents. Pia from my team kind of went out here and grabbed the crime index scores from Top Hat for you guys, so you guys can save some time on your research. And we even got some of the school ratings. You can see that there's some 7s and there's some 5s. So overall, sometimes people get a little bit afraid about Detroit because of all the past stigma, but it does not mean that you cannot be a successful investor. Like we had Ashley Hamilton on a podcast before, and she has found she is now currently making like $40,000 of cash flow a month, which is wild. Hey, Z Crawl 777. If you want help analyzing a deal, just DM me the address that you're looking at, and we can analyze it together, or I'll just analyze it tomorrow whenever I have time, and I'll go live doing it too. If you're part of the Facebook group on affordablehousing.com, that would be great. So these are the 5 zip codes that we are primarily focusing on in Detroit. And today I just went in there and I just typed in 48221 because that has the lowest crime score out of all 5 zip codes, and it also has the highest school rating. So I like that. So when I looked at 48221, you can kind of see where it is. See, downtown Detroit is right here on a map. 48221 is on the upper northwest corner. It's right before Ferndale and Royal Oak, which are pretty nice neighborhoods because I've been there personally myself when I was visiting Detroit myself, just to kind of check out the city, see what's going on. So I found this property. It looked like it was renovated already. We can take a quick look at the home. You can see here that this home is boarded up during the renovations. Interesting, right? Usually what I look for in these areas is that I try to look for areas in Detroit that don't have a lot of boarded homes, that doesn't look like a bomb went off in like the city somewhere, where I've literally seen buildings where it's like half demolished in Detroit when I was driving in the neighborhoods. But one thing that I did not know that people do in Detroit is if you are renovating the home, they actually board up the homes to prevent squatters from getting into the homes. So that's why every single property in every single market is going to be slightly different. You got to analyze a little differently, right? So I am going to go to tophap.com so you guys can kind of see the crime score here. Let's see. I can plug this guy in so you guys can kind of see. I'm looking at the photo. See, this property looks like it's pretty well renovated. It's almost like it's turnkey, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, it looks like a great home. They staged it and everything too. So let's see, 612. So let's put this guy in 1817. And just a reminder, when people go to tophad.com, you just kind of scroll down here to the neighborhood section and you scroll a little bit over. You can kind of see that this is the crime index score. So for this zip code, it's pretty right around the national average in terms of crime score. It's not up here in like the 150s and 160s. I live in an area where the crime index is roughly around 90. So pretty comparable. But again, in Detroit, it's very street by street. So you got to know and have a good team in place that can give you some advice on these areas. And it's going to be really good, especially if you are able to get in touch with Stu Hicks. He was on my podcast, and man, he is just a great guy, really great heart. And I met him in person. So he's the guy that you want on your team. And right, this is the hardest part about real estate investing, right? It's about building the right team and finding the right people. I have done the hard work to go out there and one, research the zip codes and get the team for you guys. So hopefully you guys really take advantage of all this stuff. I have nothing to sell you. I hope you guys just do a lot of good in the world, make a lot of money, help a lot of people. But please, please, please make sure you guys keep a high standard in your homes. Do not become a slumlord. All right. So let's see. What am I doing next? All right, let's grab some of these numbers for this property. Now we need the rent numbers, right? So if you are in a Facebook group, I have already pulled together all of the HUD FMRs. If you are not in a Facebook group, DM me on Instagram at InvestWithKenny, and I'll send you an invite link to our free Facebook community. We're on a mission to create the largest affordable housing investment community in the U.S. So and for these 5 zip codes, what you typically do is go to HUD FMR and then you click on the small area FMR. If you have not been part of our prior few lives, here's what we do. You go to HUD FMR, you Google it, click on the top link, and you click to access the small area FMRs. Scroll down, click on look up FY 2024 small area FMRs, go to Michigan for the state, and this is the county. You can look up Wayne County here. And if you go down to the zip codes, you can see that 48221, all the FMRs right here, which you'll see that it will match up to the Excel spreadsheet that I will be uploading onto the free Facebook group today. Now, what I do on every single spreadsheet is I always mark down the fair market rent by zip code by bedroom count. The next thing I do is I go to affordablehousing.com and I try to grab the market rents. And here's how it goes, right? You go to affordablehousing.com, you go to market rent estimator right here under for owners. And from that perspective, you plug in your address and your bedroom count. So I'm going to write down all these numbers here so you guys can kind of see how I do it. And the reason I do this is because I kind of note down all of the market rents. So my partners, whenever we're about to enter a deal, 1331, they already see all the research that I've done. So they feel more comfortable about why do we want to potentially invest in this deal. So 1681, 1459, 1480, 1469 is the 4-bedroom count. All right. So let's look at it, right? The fair market rent for 3-bedroom is 1450. The market rent supposedly for 25 units within a 0.43 mile radius, which is pretty close. So that's pretty relatively accurate. It's 1331. So for me, I'm going to underwrite the deal using 1331 because usually there's a test. It's called the rent reasonableness test. And now, if you have someone like Stu on your team that knows how to negotiate or talk with the housing authority, he might be able to get you to full FMR, right? Just depends on how well renovated your home is. But that's something that you want to do. So I'm going to underwrite using 2 scenarios, which is essentially using 1331, which is market rent, and my ceiling rent, which is the fair market rent at 1450. Okay. For those of you watching on Instagram, you want to watch the full screen version. This is on youtube.com/@Kent_HE. All right. So let's look at our principal and let's get our taxes. So our taxes is going to be down here. And I usually just go to Redfin and I kind of scroll right down and try to get the property tax number. Property tax number is $95 right here, 95. And then our homeowners insurance, 58. I'm going to do at least 20% above that, 58. So that equals $70 a month. I'm setting aside 10% every single month for some maintenance, assuming there's going to be some issues. I do not have any sewer issues here that I know about, but if there is any additional expenses, this is where I'll put it in. I have 8% for property management. And I got 3% for vacancy. At 1331, I'm going to write that I am putting in a 25% down on this property. 25. That means it's a $3,000 thing. And right now, the interest rates is probably around closer to 8.5% for a property. Cool. So let's look at the rehab. Right now, I got about $9,327. Look at this property. This property they've been listed on for since October. Looks like they did some renovations here. 135. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at this deal to see what offers we can potentially do on this property. Now let's go to the rehab calculator first. We already looked at all the photos, right? I don't think there's going to be any big renovations on this property. The flooring looks fine. If you look at the photos, kitchen looks great. I'm not going to touch that at all. Bathroom looks great. Yeah. So the flooring, maybe you want to replace the carpet, but I don't even think that's really necessary. But I can put that in there for now. So let's just assume that I still need to paint the place, even though I don't think so. But if I do need to paint the place, 1375 equals 1375. And I think I probably had to redo carpet on maybe like 300. There's 2 bedrooms. So if I assume it's like 10 by 12 per room, that's 120. That's 240. I'll just do 250 square feet of flooring in case I need to do that. I don't think I need any other rehabs on here. I assuming that I don't need a water heater because it looks like someone's living there, or they just staged it really well. I'm assuming there's no termite issues here, so it gives me a $10,950 rehab, which isn't really much, to be honest. And probably chances are it's going to be lower than that. But I like to be conservative when I write my numbers. So right now, when I go ahead and analyze this deal, my gross rent is going to be $1,331. Okay. And my cash flow at $1,331 is $109 cash flow a month. And that equals a 2.7% cash and cash return. This is assuming a $134,900 purchase price at 25% down. Okay. An 8.5% interest. All right. So what if I got the max rent because I have a much nicer home than the comparable? Well, if I got $1,450, I'm now cash flowing $1,450. I'm now cash flowing $203 a month. And my cash on cash return is now 5%. And again, everything else is constant. Well, now I want to see, well, if I got $1,450, what number do I need to pay for the property in order to achieve a 17% return, assuming it's a $10,000 rehab? So what if this was a $80,000 home? Oh, that's amazing. 85. Okay. So I know that if there's a home that requires about $10,000 of rehab, right? Assuming $10,950 for the rehab, this will now yield about a 17.2% at $490 of cash flow, $1,450. So my ceiling price that I will pay for this property is going to be $85,000, assuming it's a 25% down, 8.5% interest rate. Okay. So that's what we have right now. And what do I want to look at next? The next thing I want to check out is whether or not I have a existing loan in place. And the whole reason why I want to do this is because I want to check out if I can potentially get a subject to deal or a creative finance deal. So 16817. Let me plug this address in on PropStream so you guys can take a look at it. Let's see if there's existing loan in place. All right, so I'm on PropStream. You can kind of see that I plugged in the address right here. And I'm going to click on this detailed section. And in the detail section, there is this area called the mortgage and transaction history. When you look at the property and transaction history, you can kind of see whether there is existing mortgage. There is no existing mortgage right here. So there's not a sub to deal. So what if I decide to say like, hey, Mr. Seller, what if you finance it to me? So let's say at $134,900, and the rent is $1,331. Well, what if I offered the seller 25% down still, but they need to finance it to me at a more reasonable interest rate? Look, pay attention to this cell right here, E9, and pay attention to right here at E7. As I mess with the interest rate, what interest rate does it make it a deal? So for me, this is still not a deal, but what if this is 20%? All right. So if I were to say what makes it a deal is like, hey, if I'm able to make this a 20% down at 0% interest rate, and the price is still 134,900, and I'm getting 1331 as my rent to be conservative here. My cash flow a month is going to be 587, and this is going to be a 17.1% cash on cash return, which meets my personal criteria. Okay. Well, what if I decide to say, well, what if I only give you 10% down? That's an amazing return, but maybe the seller wants a little bit of interest rate. So I essentially can offer up to 2.5, 2.25. Let's see, 2.5, 2.75. This is probably the lowest I can do. So the best offer I can probably give the seller is, well, the other option you can give you is I'll give you 10% down, and then I'll give you 2.75% interest rate. And this is still assuming 134,900 purchase price, and the cash on cash return is still going to be 16.9, which is close enough to my return criteria. And this is now $391, and this is assuming a rent of 130.31. So all in all, this was me trying to figure out, hey, what kind of offer can I give to the seller to make it a deal that still met my criteria? So I can either say, hey, Mr. Seller, here's my 3 offers. I will give you an offer for $85,000 to some conventional financing, or Mr. Seller, if you decide to sell or finance it to me, then I will give you 20% down, but you got to give me principal only payments for 10 years or something like that to make it a deal for myself. Or the other goal would be, well, I can give you some interest, but then you are only going to get 10% down, and I'll give you 2.75% interest, and that all still works for our investment criteria. So hopefully this helps you guys determine like how to come up with 2 or 3 offers that still allows you to meet your own criteria. Again, this is a zip code that I found from my recommendations from Stu. If you guys ever want to look at other different aspects of Detroit, reach out to Stu. Ashley Hamilton was also on our podcast, and she had an amazing conversation with us. And she gave a lot of gems on how to be successful with being an affordable housing investor in Detroit. So cool. Hopefully this was helpful, guys. And this was fun. I do this every single day. And the whole reason I do this is simply because I want you guys to get really comfortable with analyzing deals, and also to understand whether or not something is a deal, and hope you guys pay it forward. So that's why we started this community. It's called Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing. The whole premise behind it is to help people get a little bit more comfortable, a little bit less afraid about investing in affordable housing. And I hope you guys have a tremendous day and do a lot of good in the world. Thank you so much for the time today, guys. And we are out.